I'm gonna mute everything other than the kick drum, and we're gonna hear. Now, you don't have to do this, but what I like to do early on is just put on, I like to put on a little bit early in the game. I like to put on an analyzer or something. Now, this isn't the best one at all, but it definitely works. It does the trick. So, you can kind of see where the majority of it's hitting in here. Not a whole lot of top end attack. It's got a little bit of sub going on. So I think, what I'm going to do is start out by leaving this first one mostly alone. I might try to just control the dynamics slightly, like barely. I'm not going to use anything special for this. I kind of want something without a lot of character and something that'll just allow me to kind of just tap it. Let's maybe go around, 3. So this really isn't doing a whole lot. It's just making sure I'm not clipping too high above 0 because this is printed really hot. Couple dB of compression. Just controlling the dynamics barely. We might come back to that, but what I'm going to do now is duplicate the track. Give this one a much, much heavier compression. So a lot of you guys probably know this is parallel compression. It's really just duplicating the track, compressing it, and reblending it back in with the original. Everyone raves about it because it's a way for you to not change the original sound too much, but add whatever you're missing. So I'm really just going to try to create a little bit more attack. We can just start at the bass drum setting because it's got a great sound. So you can already hear you're getting the clack of the attack, and then it's compressing out all that boominess out. Now I'm just going to set the threshold so we get like a decent sound. And I might try to adjust the release. The release is sounding pretty good. That way, the reason I'm quickening it is because when you have these drums that are hitting close together, I don't want it to get super squashed because it's still compressing from the last hit. And if you have a slower attack, you hear that dun-dun. It makes it much quieter. So let's keep it quick. Okay, so that's raw, all that thump. Now, let's take it a step further. Let's EQ this thing so it's more of just the highs and all that stuff. Because for this, I'm already getting my sub, and I'm probably going to make another kick that has even more sub in it. This, I really kind of just want to be the top end. When it comes to the drums and the kick and the bass especially, that's the foundation of your song. If you're going to spend the most time on something, I would recommend it being on the kick and bass, because if you get the foundation right, for any genre, if you get the low end right, everything else will just start falling into place. If your low end isn't right, you're going to just go in circles trying to get the mix to a place where you want it to be. So, just slave over the kick and the bass, spend as much time as you need to get it right. Don't worry that you got, kick soloed for however long, you know what I mean? You're not trying to impress anybody at this point. You're just trying to get a really good sound. And again, for this, I'm focused on just getting that click of that attack. So that's sounding pretty good. So again, so you guys can hear it raw. Right, all that thumpiness, and then. So now I've got that. I'm gonna go ahead and label this. This will be my kick attack. Let's go ahead and duplicate it again because I'm kind of building up the sound of this kick because it's good, but I want to get more out of it. The next thing, I'm going to try or want to try is tuning this kick to the key of the song. So earlier, we found the key of the song, which was G minor. So what I'm going to do is go to my handy dandy note frequency chart, and you guys should have one of these. You should have a time delay chart and a note frequency chart. Mixing really is an art. Creating an emotional connection with the listener, that's really at the heart of it. But there is some science, there's a lot of science behind it, right? That's probably why we love doing it, because it's left and right brain. You're being creative, but there's a technical side also. So go ahead and nerd out a bit. Let's check out these charts so you can see what I mean. You guys probably already know about this plugin because it's awesome. It's been around forever, and it's R-based. Now, for a while, I was just kind of going based off my ear or just what I thought would be right. There really was no rhyme or reason. So, I thought I was doing great. But then once I kind of started learning more about acoustics and how everything relates to each other, I started tuning it, and it's worked out much better. So on this chart, I want to tune this to the root of the song. We know the root of the song is G because it's G minor. On the chart, we can go down and see the lowest G available is 24.5 hertz. That's a little too low for what I'm trying to do. Technically, that's in the audible range, but anything that low, you might be in brown note territory. You know what I mean? So let's go a little bit higher. Let's go an octave up. So the next G is 48.99 hertz. We'll call that 49 hertz. And that's definitely in sub territory. I would say, I like to think of the sub as being, 20 to 60, somewhere in that region, or 30 to 60. 49, that's going to actually synthesize a sub bass note that's in the key of the song. So a lot of times it works great, especially if you're doing rock. For this, we'll see how it works, and if it works, we'll use it, and if not, we'll get rid of it. Because we're adding intensity and we're adding harmonics, we're probably going to have to bring the gain down. Okay, so I kind of want to be able to A-B this properly. In order to do that, since I've turned the gain down so much, I'll just pull up an EQ, I guess. And negative 9.8. So let's just make this negative 9.8. So essentially, I'll switch between the two. So that way the level stays kind of the same. So that's without the R bass. If you're not listening with the sub right now or with headphones, you might not hear it. Let me see if I can hear it on these small NS10s. Yeah, so you can actually hear it a little bit on the NS10s. It's not quite as noticeable. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, so let's keep that. And now, because again, I'm just focusing on that low end, we can just roll off the top end. Doesn't really matter what. You know what, we'll just keep using this same plugin. Why not? Now, again, if you don't have a sub or whatever, this is going to be pretty hard to hear, pretty subtle stuff. But this is going to be now my sub kick. So I got my main kick, I got my kick attack, I got my sub kick, and it's all being derived from the same kick. We'll start blending these together in a bit, but I think for now, I'm just going to rough them in. So let's just... it's just adding a little bit of that top kick. We're not trying to make a huge difference. It's there, and then if I need to add more in the mix, I can. Let's check out this guy. So that's definitely adding sub. Thing is, it might actually conflict with the bass. And it sounds like there's a little bit of phasing going on as well. So let's just make sure our delay compensation is on, and it is. Check it here. Yeah, it all looks good. So for now, I'm gonna keep this muted, but I have it just in case we need it. Because that's sounding really clean. It's hitting good. Yeah, you know what? It's not blending quite perfectly. We'd probably have to roll some of the low end off this guy in order to make these two mesh perfectly, but I don't think we're gonna go that route. I think we're gonna leave it there in case we need it. I kind of want to add some tail. I kind of want to add a little dirt and grit to it. So this is probably about the time where I go ahead and pull in a couple of my own samples. And this is also, you know, a very delicate part of the mix because we are finishing the mix, right? We're not finishing the production, as Dave Pensado always likes to drill in, and I always like to remind myself. So the key is to do it respectfully. We're not going to sound replace anything, but you can't EQ in what's not there. If it's just not there, there's no way you can compress it hard enough or EQ it hard enough. So we're just going to have to pull in our own samples and then blend them in. So I'm going to go ahead and split this off. This will be my trigger track. This will be my replace. So I'm just going to label this kick AC. Let's just go ahead and preview some kicks. Now you guys should be getting, I think, all these kicks, and these samples are samples that were all pulled off of an SSL. When I was working, I actually assisted Dave Pensado for a long time, and we put together these samples and sampled them straight off the SSL console, and we gave them out. Now, granted, this was quite a few years ago, but these samples have kind of the stuff you need or might be missing from the drums, so that they're a great place to start if you're trying to add something. You can kind of just go down the list and find what you need and add it to the mix. We gave these out for years, and I think these will be really great to add to your collection. So let's just listen to some of these. That's a little too clean. Too clean. Not what I'm looking for. A lot of sub. Sounds good. Okay, that might be it. That's got grit, dirt, a nice tail to it. It's a little short. He's short. I think this is actually exactly what I'm looking for. Yep, that's got all the grit and dirt. So that's kick 4. So I'm just going to go to sound replacer and go ahead and choose kick 4. The key with sound replacer, get the trigger as close to the front as possible without creating false triggers, because sometimes if you put it all the way down, you'll get false triggers, especially in live recordings. Peak align basically aligns the peaks of the samples. We don't want to do that. We want to align the fronts of the sample. So I'm going to turn off peak align, and I'm going to turn off crossfade. I don't want it doing that. And I actually don't want it following the dynamics. Dynamics means if the kick gets louder or softer, it'll do the same with what I'm replacing. We don't want to do that. So I've turned off crossfade, peak line, and dynamics, leaving the mix at 100%. I've come all the way down. I'm just going to come up a touch to make sure there's no triggers, false triggers happening. And I'll look down, make sure it all looks good. Kind of zoom in Just double check where exactly the trigger is being put, and that looks pretty good. All right, so we're gonna select kick A, C, and let's sound replace it. Okay, so this was kind of our original kick with that top end I added. Let's try and blend this guy in a little bit just to hear where it sounds and see what's going on with it. So I'm just going to be kind of exaggerate it so you guys can really hear what's going on, right? That doesn't sound bad. Now the first thing you guys are going to want to do whenever sound replacing is just double check to make sure the phase alignment is right. The way I like to do it, I like to duplicate the track. I just grab it, I invert it. Here it is, invert. Invert it, and then just listen to it down with it turned all the way up. Because the worst thing you can do is add a drum sample that ends up causing some kind of phase issues that you're not aware of. You think it's sounding great, but it's actually pulling out low end or something. So let's listen to it down and make sure we've got the proper phase alignment. So that's one way. Now I'm going to switch it. Okay, so that sounds better, I think, originally. Again, so you can hear the difference. This is with it regular. Okay, so you can kind of hear it sucking out the low end when I invert it. That tells me there's the right phase alignment. You can hear the low end pushing, and you can kind of go in here, kind of see what's going on. Now, interestingly enough, it's almost completely out of phase here in the beginning, but I think we're not going to be using attack. We're going to be using more of the subby stuff, more of this tail, and it lines up more in this section and back here. And it just sounds better. You know, at the end of the day, trust your ears. You know, sometimes it gets easy to rely on numbers or the meters, but at the end of the day, no one listening to it has that stuff. So make sure you trust your ears. Because I'm telling you right now, looking at this, it looks completely out of phase and it looks like it shouldn't work at all, but it sounds much better to me like this than it does flipped like this. Although looking at it, it really does look better, doesn't it? Yeah, it's that tail that I'm listening to. The low end and the tail sounds so much better. So I'm gonna keep it like this. Technically, it's out of phase in the beginning, but we're not gonna worry about that, are we? So let's just blend that in tastefully now. Again, I'm trying to spice up the production. I'm not trying to completely change it. I'm not trying to say, oh, I'm a better producer than whoever did this. That's not the case at all. These guys are incredible and they're good at what they do. They chose this kick for a reason because it's so punchy and mid-rangey. Probably to let the sub bass come through more. So again, I don't want to alter it too much, but I do want to add that flavor underneath. So for now, something like that. Group these guys because that's my original. Just the original, just my new one, and then everything together. I'm pretty happy with that.